something I was going to pick up on your original introduction about how maybe we should kind of scale it up a little bit and be political and get dirty. So that's kind of the story that I was going to say. Because there's been lots of great conversation about bigger issues. I know Joan's thing yesterday, which was, we all said it was a little bit of a downer, but really important. The global stuff is great. But for me, I need to start here locally, okay? So I want to sort of focus on that story. And there's a lot of great things happening in Wolfville. We have the farmers market, we have a lot of restaurants, we have EOS, we have all kinds of stuff. But if you want to think about it, at the farmers market, Jane, on a Wednesday night, how many meals would get served on a good night?
Oh, we're lucky to have 100 people there.
100 people.
120 maybe.
Okay, so we got 100 meals at the farmers market. That's great. On a day at Acadia during the year, we have 3,500 meals served. So think about that in terms of, could we make a difference? Think about, and then the next question is, how close is the nearest place where you can slaughter and process meat to Acadia? Who would know? Where is it? Reeds, about 8 kilometers. There's Olton's in Windsor, about 30 kilometers. There's Meadowbrook out Kings County, about 30 kilometers. Acadia University spends on meat more than $500,000 a year buying meat. How much of that meat comes from this area? 0. Okay? Sorry, 1%, Katie says? What? 0.1%, sorry. 0.1%. We're talking $500,000 relative. I'm not, the farmers market is amazing, but let's think about it. We can make a huge impact if we can deal with this issue. It seems pretty simple. It's not. It's kind of political and it's kind of dirty. So I kind of want to talk about a bit about that and what we can do about it and how do we, and if I'm talking about Acadia, but every one of you has a community college near you, a hospital near you, a school near you. So it's not just $500,000 at Acadia. There's $500,000 at St. Yvette's. Mount Allison, think about Dalhousie. So it's huge. Now, in terms of what we do. And Acadia needs to get better. It's gotten a bit better in recent years. And you can actually get really good, tasty, amazing food here. But you have to demand it, you have to ask for it, and you have to pay for it. And they can do it really well. It's not like they can't do it. Some of the food last night that Chart will serve was, the fish cakes were great. Wow. So we can do some really good things here. But standard, if you go to that dining hall, I don't know how many have been there, you won't see it on a standard bit every day. So how can we change that? How can we change that 500? And what's the process? That's kind of maybe in a brief thing. And maybe you need a little context. To give you a little context, in the 1800s here in Acadia, the whole top of where Tower is was a farm. And the Acadia students in the 1800s, as part of their tuition, had to work, I think it was 100 hours a term on the farm to provide food for the dining hall. That's the way it was. In 1950, fast forward, this is a fast story, the president of the university closed the farm and said there was no room for a farm in modern post-secondary education. Wow. Now we have the little Acadia farm down there, okay? And things have gotten better, sort of. But Acadia used to run its own food services. 30, 40 years ago, I was trying to figure this out, around 40, we contracted it out. We gave up control, which every other little institution did in your community. We gave up control for that food system. Why? Because we're in the business of running a university. It's getting more and more complex, and trying to manage a food service was costly and difficult. And so, why not give it to somebody else? Okay? So we gave it to somebody else, and actually the somebody else's have gotten slightly better over the years because of some of the pressure of things, but slightly better. And so now what we have here is a system which basically the university has no expertise in food. The expertise in food is all with a third-party provider, and it could be at any other university. And they really have to give two things to the university. This is what the university asks for. Some kind of financial agreement where the university gets some money, which is a part of everything, and they have to make sure that everybody doesn't get too pissed off. That's basically it. That's what they need to deliver to the university, and what they basically get on top of that is to make a profit, And they need to do that, and they need to be pretty efficient. So that's the system that we've got. And the people that are employed in that system are good people. I mean, you can't go scream at the individuals in that system. They tend to be competent at what they're supposed to do. They're rewarded for what they're supposed to do, and they'll listen, and et cetera, et cetera. But they're working in a system that has to give a certain amount of money to the university, and they have to make money for themselves, and they have to make sure that no one complains a hell of a lot. And that's kind of where we're at, okay? So how do we change that? Well, we're not totally going to change the third-party provider because they're a corporation and they hire people with specific... You're not going to hire food activists in there. You know, I'd love to hire Josh. No, they won't hire Josh up at Acadia Food Services, I don't think. So you're not going to expect them to do it for us. Will they go along? Yes, if there's a contract that says that they will do that, okay? So in some sense, we have to take this back, and that's possible. We have to take the notion that they're going to deliver food for us back to, we own the contract and we're going to tell them what they need to do, okay? That sounds kind of simple. So why don't we say, go buy your meat at Reed's? Well, there's all kinds of complex reasons, like they want federally inspected meat and we have provincially inspected meat. That's a huge story. It's kind of a bogus story. We could do it provincially, but it's complex. So, how do we kind of work at this, and what have we been doing here? The first thing is we kind of, over the last 3 or 4 years, created a food policy committee, and we've created, let's talk to the students and let's talk to the faculty. We've done a lot of interviewing with students, and for example, students tell you, surprise, they want fresh and local food, okay? And so we've talked to them and we've set up a policy, and then we've gone to work with Chartwells and say, what can we do together voluntarily, what we do, and they were very listening and supportive, and they did 1 or 2 things, like move the salad bar and change it with dessert, so that now we're getting a lot more salad here. Yes, great. But at some point we said, well, you could do this with this local producer and this and this and this, and they kind of said, whoa, this is going to start to affect finances and bottom line, or it could, or efficiency and time. We'd be interested in talking about that, but we'll only talk about that if you reopen the contract and we get more money, okay? We can't, the universities don't have any money these days. We can't, at this moment, reopen a 10-year contract. In other words, the answer was no. It's not possible to do this on this voluntary way. So it comes back to, we have to take control. So if we're going to take control, and in fact, the good news in the next year or 2, the contract comes up. And we could, and I guess I'm suggesting to you, wherever you in your institution, we could try to get this contract to say more than financial, don't piss off the students. It could say lots more than that. And so we're working on doing that, and we need student input. So because who's makes in your institutions, who's making the decisions on that contract? Well, in this institution and most institutions, we have what's called the Vice President of Administration, okay? You have somebody like that. Well, the Vice President of Administration was not hired because he was a food activist, right? He was hired to run a university. He knows relatively little. We just retired, so we're going to get into it. We don't even know what he, or it could be a she, is going to know. But I predict that new person will not be a food activist, okay? And they will be balancing, for example, class sizes, that costs money. They will be balancing Mi'kmaq scholarships, which is a huge issue on this campus. They will be balancing mental health for services for students.